Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Technology, a podcast exploring the latest in computers, networking, home automation, mobile computing, and all things technology related. Our hosts will take a deeper dive into the latest and greatest in tech trends and give you the information you need to enable your tech-centric world.
This is Insights into Technology, episode 22. No Cyber Command, no Cyber Control. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and this is your tech news of the week. Our first article comes to us from Martin Matashak at The Record. Digital détente or security sabotage? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has directed U.S. Cyber Command to halt all planning against Russia, including offensive cyber operations. This order, which does not affect the National Security Agency's signals intelligence activities, aligns with the administration's efforts to normalize relations with Moscow following its 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The duration of this directive remains uncertain, with Cyber Command instructed to assess ongoing missions and potential threats emanating from Russia. This strategic shift may have significant implications for the cybersecurity landscape affecting commercial and enterprise sectors. By pausing offensive cyber operations against a major cyber adversary, there could be an increased risk of cyber threats targeting critical infrastructure, financial systems, and corporate networks. Organizations need to bolster the defensive measures, reassess risk management strategies, and enhance threat intelligence capabilities to mitigate potential escalations in cyber attacks. With U.S. Cyber Command standing down on offensive operations, could Russian cyber actors become more emboldened to target U.S. businesses? Well, the absence of offensive cyber deterrence could encourage Russian state-sponsored and criminal cyber groups to ramp up attacks on U.S. businesses. Historically, adversaries test boundaries when they perceive a reduction in defensive or retaliatory actions. Russian-linked groups such as APT-29 or Cozy Bear and APT-28 or Fancy Bear have previously targeted U.S. government agencies, financial institutions, and infrastructure. So what should businesses do in this case? With Cyber Command being largely taken out of the picture at this point in time, I think there's an overall loss of vision of what Cyber Command does and the role they play, not just in protecting the federal government systems, but also commercial and enterprise systems in the country. With the absence of U.S. Cyber Command's role in this, you're going to want to secure your own organization. You're going to want to subscribe to cybersecurity threat intelligence feeds to monitor emerging threats. A couple of the ones that I recommend are Alien Vault's Open Threat Exchange, CISA's Automated Indicator Sharing, or AIS. US CERT puts out a list as well, as does Dark Tracer. So these are some resources that you might find helpful in at least being aware of the threats out there and how you can mitigate some of them. You also want to implement zero trust security models, which if you haven't done so already, you probably should do. Even with Cyber Command in play, it's worthwhile going zero trust. This ensures strict identity verification and least privileged access to anyone inside your network. Obviously, patching. We talk about this and we harp on this all the time. Keep your software and systems up to date to reduce vulnerabilities. Training is another one that we harp on a lot. A lot of our Mitigation strategies rely on educated users. So educate your employees on the latest phishing, social engineering, and advanced persistent threats, how to spot them, what to do when they think they might have spotted one. And finally, you want to invest in proper endpoint detection and response, your EDR solutions. Advanced tools can detect and mitigate sophisticated cyber threats as they're happening or before they happen. So what's going to happen with the resources that Cyber Command currently has? Because as far as I know, I haven't seen anything yet, but they've not fallen victim to the purge of Doge at this point in time. They could shift their focus. They've made mention of strengthening their U.S. Government and critical infrastructure to prevent attacks from other attackers, such as China, Iran, North Korea, basically round up the usual suspects. They also may be allocating resources to disrupt ransomware gangs that often operate with state support. I don't know if any of that's going to actually happen, given some of the other decisions that are being made as far as cybersecurity goes. Could this lead to enhanced operations against other cyber threats, such as those from non-state actors? It's possible. Cyber Command may prioritize countering threats from financially motivated groups, activists, and espionage operations by other nation states. China, we talked about, has increased cyber espionage operations. North Korean actors frequently target financial institutions to fund state operations. What implications, and I know with our new America First mentality, we probably aren't thinking too much of this, but what are the implications for international cybersecurity? Potentially, if the U.S. reduces cyber offensive operations, other nations may view this as a de-escalation signal or an opportunity to act more aggressively. The decision might also encourage diplomatic efforts to establish clearer international norms for cyber conflict, but adversarial nations likely won't adhere to such agreements. How might other nations perceive and react to the U.S. altering its cyber posture? Well, our allies, if we have any of those left at this point in time, like NATO and Five Eyes, may worry about decreased deterrence and could increase their own cyber operations. I don't think they have much choice. They kind of have to. I suspect a good portion of what we do to protect ourselves involves sharing intelligence on cyber threats. Russia might view this as an opportunity to expand its cyber espionage efforts with less fear of U.S. retaliation. That's almost a guarantee at this point. China may interpret this as a sign of reduced U.S. cyber engagement and could ramp up its own operations. I don't know how they could ramp them up much more than they already are because they're hammering us on a daily basis. And then really the area I think of the most concern right now is that cyber criminal groups will take advantage of the lull in offensive actions to increase ransomware attacks and data breaches. I think you're going to see a significant increase in attacks coming forward. So I'm not really sure why they made this decision here, but combined with several other decisions, which we'll talk about later in the show, it doesn't bode well for cybersecurity, and it's actually kind of scary at this point in time. It's almost like there's a deliberate attempt right now to cripple our ability to defend ourselves against cyber attacks, and I don't know what the motivation is behind that, but it's not good. Our next story comes to us from Dark Readings' Elizabeth Montalbano. Sharing is scaring. A sophisticated phishing campaign is exploiting Microsoft SharePoint to compromise Windows systems. Attackers send emails prompting users to open a documents.html file, which instructs them to execute a malicious PowerShell command. This command deploys the open source Havoc command and control framework, granting attackers full control over the compromised systems. This attack underscores the evolving tactics of cybercriminals who leverage trusted platforms like SharePoint to bypass security measures. For enterprises, such sophisticated phishing methods pose significant risks, including unauthorized access, data breaches, and potential operational disruptions. The use of legitimate services for malicious purposes challenges traditional security defenses, necessitating advanced threat detection and comprehensive user education. By embedding malicious content within legitimate services, attackers exploit the inherent trust that's in those services, making it difficult for standard security protocols to detect and block such threats. Anytime you trust something, when that trust is broken, it takes a while before most people tend to pick up on it. Requiring users to execute commands circumvents automated security measures, placing the onus on individuals who may not recognize the threat, thereby increasing the attack success rate. This goes back to the nag screens that everyone's familiar with Microsoft user account control, where Microsoft had flooded people with these security prompts to the point that people trained themselves to ignore them. So you're seeing similar things similar methodologies when it comes to these types of attacks now. With users actually executing the commands themselves, you don't have a chance to let your automated defensive systems actually detect these and stop them because it's user initiated. The advanced obfuscation techniques conceal malicious code within seemingly benign operations, evading traditional signature-based detection methods and necessitating behavioral analysis for identification. The one advantage we have right now, or maybe the silver lining in all of this, is that current security systems and security infrastructures that are implementing artificial intelligence as part of its defense mechanisms they're very capable of detecting these types of attacks and mitigating them, where traditional security, where we're using signature-based, obviously they're not performing very well with these threats. Organizations should adopt multi-layered security approaches, including advanced threat protection and detection systems, regular employee training on phishing recognition, and strict access controls to minimize potential impacts. It sounds like a broken record, I know. It's the same things over and over again to defend against these things. They're not foolproof techniques, but if you're not doing these, then you're simply ramping up the percentage chance of being attacked and breached significantly. Open source tools do provide attackers with customizable and cost-efficient resources to develop sophisticated malware like this, thus lowering the barrier to entry for executing complex cyber attacks. That cat and mouse game where when they make it easier for the attackers, they make it harder for the defenders. And there's really, unfortunately, no way to get around that. AI is becoming one of the leading sources of some of this malicious code, and we have to be very careful about that. So be aware of this. My note to my users was to at least let them know about this threat, what to look for, and what not to expect. Like, we're not going to send out emails asking you to run scripts and so forth. So a lot of times it's just a matter of common sense at this point in time, and as long as the users are aware to look for these things, you're usually okay. But make sure you communicate these types of threats to your users so that at least when they see something, they know to question it. They don't wonder if they need to question it. Our next article comes to us from Dark Readings. I'm going to say this wrong. I apologize in advance. Vijayan, I want to say. I think that's correct. VMware's virtual vault breached. VMware has released patches for 3 critical zero-day vulnerabilities affecting its ESXi, Workstation, and Fusion products. These flaws, currently under active exploitation, allow attackers with administrative access to a virtual machine to escape the VM sandbox and execute code on the host system. This escalation can lead to unauthorized control over the host environment, posing significant security risks. The exploitation of these vulnerabilities threatens the foundational security of virtualized environments widely used in enterprise settings. Successful attacks could result in unauthorized access to critical systems, data breaches, and operational disruptions, the usual suspect of, or the usual result of these types of things. Organizations relying on VMware's virtualization solutions must act promptly to mitigate these risks. And again, we're going to harp on the typical stuff that we talk about here. Timely patching is crucial for preventing exploitation. Implementing robust access management policies can limit potential attack vectors. Continuous monitoring can help identify and respond to exploitation attempts. It's worthwhile to take a moment to talk about this for a second. Continuous monitoring isn't just running a firewall. Continuous monitoring is running internal threat detection systems themselves that look for anomalies. They look for unusual access requests. They may look for elevated data transfer rates. They may look for users who are accessing areas that are outside of their area of responsibility, or users who are putting request access to areas that they don't normally have access to. These are all the types of automated systems that you need to be running internally. No one person has the time to go through logs and dig through all this stuff to try to find it. So these types of monitoring and detection systems need to be in place. Staying informed with your vendors enables proactive vulnerability management as well. Again, being on one of these vulnerability lists to see when these threats come out. Preparedness ensures swift action to mitigate damage. You see a lot of these advanced persistent threats penetrate networks and start exfiltrating data or compromising internal security precautions, and they could be in your network for 6 months to a year in some cases, but they're not doing anything malicious other than gathering information and prepping the system for a future attack. And these are the types of things that throw up red flags when you have processes that are running that you can't identify, or high bandwidth utilization times, or slow system performance periodically throughout the day, or your database starts to grind to a halt. You have to be aware of these things. Don't discount them because they happen to go away after a period of time. Understand the patterns, understand what the threats are. It's a dangerous world out there in cyberspace, and we have to be vigilant, we have to be educated, and we have to be persistent in our pursuits. That's all we had for this first segment today for our cybersecurity segment. I did want to take a moment to invite you to reach out to us, give us your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the articles we discussed today. I'd love to hear your take on our opinions on things. You can call in, leave a voicemail for us. The number is 856-403-8788. That's 856-403-8788. Or you can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com, or you can get links to all of our social media and contacts on our main website at www.insightsintothings.com. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of your favorite gaming podcast finishing with a play?
Oh, no!
Well, check out No Credits Rolled, where we play the games but rarely finish them. How's it going, folks? I'm Sam Whalen, your friendly host at No Credits Rolled, the ultimate gaming podcast, where we dish out the latest scoops and reviews on all your beloved video games.
Hey, listen!
Not only that, but we spice things up with some guest interviews and even give you, yes you, a chance to have your say. Tune in every other week for a fresh dose of No Credits Rolled, available on all major podcast platforms, and hit us up on social media at No Credits Rolled. So why wait? Let's dive into the gaming world together, where finishing games is optional, but the fun is guaranteed.
Welcome back to Insights into Technology. Our next story comes to us from Sergio Gatlin at Bleeping Computer, who tells us the end of the line for Skype is near. Microsoft has announced that it will discontinue Skype on May 5th of this year after 22 years of service. The company is encouraging users to transition to Microsoft Teams, which offers similar functionalities, along with additional features like calendar management and meeting hosting. Existing Skype users can migrate their contacts and chat histories to Teams using their current Skype credentials. The shift from Skype to Microsoft Teams reflects Microsoft's strategy to consolidate its communication platforms, aiming to provide a unified solution for both personal and professional use. For businesses, this transition offers an opportunity to integrate various collaboration tools into a single platform, potentially enhancing productivity and streamlining workflows. However, organizations currently relying on Skype may need to plan and execute the migration to Teams carefully to ensure continuity and address any training needs associated with the new platform. I have to say I'm kind of sad to see this go. I've been a Skype user from practically day one before Microsoft acquired it. It was an excellent service for long-distance communication before social media exploded. I used to use it for long-distance phone calls at the time because the rates were so much cheaper. I even had a subscription to it, and I was just notified by Microsoft very politely that the 18 cents of credit that I still had on the account has been revoked or lost or whatever because I haven't used it in 90 days or something like that. But I was a long-time user of it. So how can businesses effectively migrate from Skype to Teams? Well, organizations should develop a detailed migration plan with timelines, data transfer procedures, and employee training programs. Pretty much anytime you're migrating any platform over. Using Microsoft's migration tools and resources can facilitate a smooth transition. Now, caveat, I've not tried their transition tools yet. One of the things that I have traditionally found is that transition tools in situations like this rarely work 100% as advertised. So with that in mind, you probably want to have a rollback plan or some type of failover plan if it doesn't go well. So what additional features does Teams offer compared to Skype, and how can enterprises leverage them? Microsoft is selling this transition with the notion that they're providing you more services, and Teams does. Teams provides integrated collaboration tools such as file sharing, project management, and application integration, which can enhance team productivity and communication efficiency. We recently started the transition to Teams at my organization. Most of our functionality is reserved or restricted or handled, I should say, by an internal SharePoint server, which Teams is also looking to supplement and replace that as well. So the transition for us, it's awkward. The Teams interface isn't the most intuitive, but it's also fairly user-friendly. It takes just a little bit of a learning curve to get used to. But how does Teams address security and compliance requirements for enterprises, especially when you're putting your files up there? That's a significant concern that a lot of companies have. Teams does include robust security features such as data encryption, multi-factor authentication, and compliance certifications, aligning with various industry standards and to protect organizational data. I will mention, though, the Teams does currently allow SMS two-factor. And as we've talked about on the podcast in the past, SMS is literally the least secure version of two-factor. I would absolutely opt for another two-factor method other than SMS. We use YubiKeys for ours, or authenticator apps for our access. But I would definitely recommend something stronger than SMS. Another big question, will existing third-party integrations with Skype be compatible with Teams? This is another catch here where you'll find a lot of the tools you've come to rely on that you've used in conjunction with Skype may not necessarily be available. Some integrations may require adjustments. Microsoft Teams supports a wide range of third-party applications, so your organization needs to review their current integrations and consult with vendors to ensure compatibility. So a lot of vendors have been trying to move over to Teams already. You may find a lot of the third-party helper apps that you use may be over there already. Either way, no one likes change. It's human nature to kind of resist change. But this is one where you obviously don't have a choice at this point in time. And I think you'll probably find that Teams is probably not the best video conferencing app out there, but I think it's adequate for most people. But you don't have much of a choice, right? We have to move on here. So make the most of it. Train your people. Make sure your third-party apps are working. And have a plan. Next up, cloudy with a chance of downtime. Sergio Gatlin from Bleeping Computer comes to us with this one again. On March 3rd, 2025, Microsoft experienced a significant outage affecting its Microsoft 365 services, notably disrupting Teams functionality and causing widespread call failures. Now, you take this with the last article and you wonder, okay, why am I moving the Teams if they can't keep it up and running? It's a valid question. Microsoft's had several outages in the last few months that have a lot of people scratching their heads. Users reported issues with authentication across multiple services, including Outlook, OneDrive, and Exchange. Microsoft acknowledged the problem, stating, quote, users may not be able to receive calls placed through Microsoft Teams, provisioned auto attendance, and call queues, unquote, and initiated an investigation to identify the root cause. This outage highlights the vulnerabilities inherent in relying on cloud-based communication platforms. Having recently started a transition to a more cloud-centric environment at my facility, I can totally understand the skepticism here because it's very disheartening to move over to a large cloud environment like Microsoft, only to find that you're having consistent outage problems. And unfortunately, Microsoft is a big, giant target. They've got a target on their back. Most of the malicious actors out there are going after Microsoft, one, because Microsoft is notoriously insecure with how they do things. And two, they've got a massive customer base, so they're ripe for the picking now. For businesses, such disruptions can lead to operational inefficiencies, decreased productivity, and potential financial losses. The incident underscores the necessity for robust contingency planning and diversified communication strategies to mitigate the impact of unforeseen service disruptions. So what led to the authentication token failures that caused this outage? The outage, according to Microsoft, was attributed to, quote, problematic code change, unquote, in Microsoft's authentication system, leading to widespread service disruptions, which again is alarming. It'd be one thing if it was a malicious attack or a denial of service or something along those lines that Microsoft is invariably going to get hit with and can respond quickly to. But in this case here, it's a problem of their own making, which, speaks to the insecure way that they code their software, which is also why their operating system releases 70 to 100, over 100 patches a month. The outage primarily affected users across Canada and parts of the U.S., impacting services, as you said, like Outlook, Teams, and OneDrive. Microsoft identified the issue within hours, attributing it to a recent code update, and reverted the changes to restore services. Organizations should implement multi-channel communications platforms, establish robust incident response plans, and regularly review their service level agreements with providers. Not that that's going to get you too far with Microsoft, because the SLAs that Microsoft have are predominantly favorable towards them. This underscores the need for businesses to assess their reliance on single providers and consider hybrid solutions to ensure continuity. I don't know how a hybrid solution would have solved this. You're not going to have multiple providers for the services, your Outlook, for instance. You're not going to have multiple email providers. It's just not practical. Your Teams environment, same thing. Your OneDrive environment, same thing. Having an offline repository where you can access these things that then sync to the cloud, that might be doable. But other than that, I think you're kind of at Microsoft's mercy here. I don't know of any solution out there that really offers a robust, multi-pronged approach to having multiple vendors provide these services without unnecessary duplication, synchronization issues, or security concerns, not to mention the expense of recreating multiple infrastructure networks. So this is one of those situations where you need to be very careful about what cloud provider you choose and have a plan for what to do when that provider goes down, because it's going to happen. Apple Insider gives us our next article. This one's from Andrew Orr. The Big Apple bites back. Apple is challenging a UK government order demanding a backdoor into its encrypted iCloud storage, specifically targeting its advanced data protection feature. This legal action, filed with the UK's Investigatory Powers Tribunal, marks the first court test of the 2016 Investigatory Powers Act's provision on encryption. In response to the order, Apple has withdrawn ADP from the UK, emphasizing its commitment to user privacy and its stance against creating backdoors in its products. The UK's demand for access to encrypted data, which they're not the first ones to want this. The politicians in the US have been pushing for this, and local authorities have been pushing for this in the United States for quite some time now. Their demand for access to encrypted data raises significant concerns for businesses relying on cloud services for secure data storage. Some key considerations include data privacy and security, obviously. Mandating backdoors could compromise the confidentiality of sensitive business information, increasing vulnerability to unauthorized access. Compliance and trust. Companies may face challenges aligning with global data protection regulations, potentially eroding trust in service providers perceived as susceptible to government interventions. This is exactly why the United States wanted to ban TikTok, because of the government intervention in China on the app. There's also a concern for operational continuity. The removal of security features like ADP may prompt businesses to seek alternative solutions, potentially disrupting established workflows. What those alternative solutions would be that would still be legal in the UK under this law, I don't know. I have to imagine any law that encrypts the data to the point that the government can't access it if it needs to would not be considered acceptable. So you're not going to have a solution in country. This may force companies to go outside the country in order to get the services that they need. These actions by the UK could set precedents, encouraging other nations to impose similar requirements, complicating the global landscape for data security and privacy. You also have to question the technical feasibility. This is the same argument Apple's had about the demands by the U.S. Law enforcement agencies to unlock phones in criminal cases. Introducing a backdoor inherently weakens encryption, making systems more susceptible to exploitation by malicious actors. Once you put a backdoor in, you can't assume it's only the government that's going to use it. And that's assuming that the government's intentions are on the up and up, which in today's political climate, that's a big if. But once you compromise the ability to secure a system, anybody who finds that exploit can then take advantage of it. And there's nothing you can do about it. Businesses may adopt additional encryption measures, diversify service providers, which again, we talked about being difficult to do, or implement on-premise data solutions to maintain control over the data security. Now, this is an interesting concept. So, for the longest time, everyone had on-prem solutions, on-prem email, on-prem file storage, on-prem data collaboration, and so forth. And the push over the last 10 years, 5 to 10 years, has been go to the cloud. It's cost effective. You don't have to have the hardware. You don't have to maintain it. You don't have to worry about licensing, all that stuff. Well, now we're getting to the point now where the government is making sure that we can't trust these service providers if we can't encrypt our data securely. So you bring it all back in-house, you're going to negate the advantages that being in the cloud gives you. But then that also begs the question of, if I secure my data internally and I don't put it in the cloud, can the government come and make me unlock my data for them? There's a lot of legal wrangling going on with this one. Companies could face conflicts also between complying with local laws and adhering to international data protection standards, potentially leading to legal disputes and operational complexities. What the UK is asking Apple to do would effectively violate GDPR, potentially, and it would affect other laws in different countries as well. So it's, like I said, legal wrangling here. Is it legal to create a law that breaks other laws? I'm not a legal scholar. I couldn't talk to that effect. But that's really what the question's coming down to. It's an overreach of government. Unfortunately, it's not the United States government this time. It usually is. But it's an overreach of government that could potentially be a violation of other regulations and laws that are out there that puts the end user in quite a quandary at that point in time. So we'll have to watch this one and see where it goes. I mean, Apple's first approach was, we're just not going to offer the service anymore. You'll have to find it somewhere else. And there's, the problem is the encryption genie's out of the bottle. If you want to do something, I don't even want to say illegal, but if you want to do something that you don't want the government or law enforcement or competitors or someone else to see or be aware of, there's an infinite number of encryption options, and I can encrypt data before I put it into the cloud. It doesn't need to be encrypted by the cloud. There's nothing that say I can't encrypt my data. It's my data. I can do whatever I want with it. And the government trying to come in here and get access to it, it's lazy. There's plenty of methods out there for law enforcement and government agencies to do their job without having us break encryption, break the internet. And that's really what they're asking to do, is break the internet, basically, for their citizens. And I think that's sketchy at best. We're going to take our second break right now. And when we come back, I was going to do a deep dive on, I was going to start the deep dive on our artificial intelligence, but I'm going to hold off on that. It is done and ready to go. I'm going to hold off on that right now. I think there are a number of issues, number of concerning things that came up in the news lately that I'm trying to wrap my head around, and I want to throw it out there for the audience. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I'm going to throw out some information, some theories, and a lot of questions, and we'll see where we go. So we'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Technology. So we need to take a little moment here to talk about some of the things that have been in the news. So since taking office, President Trump has issued several executive orders and directives that have raised concerns regarding their potential negative impact on national cybersecurity efforts. I'm just going to run down a couple here real quick and then try to figure things out here. So on January 22nd, there was an order basically that came out, and this is almost immediately after he took the oath of office. There was an order that came out that dismantled the Cyber Safety Review Board. The administration disbanded members of the review board, which was an advisory board responsible for investigating significant cybersecurity incidents. The move raised questions about the future of cybersecurity oversight and the nation's preparedness to handle major cyber events. And we talked about this earlier. Then on February 3rd, there was a regulatory freeze affecting cybersecurity measures. An executive memorandum was issued to implement a regulatory freeze across executive departments and agencies. This freeze may delay or halt the implementation of new cybersecurity regulations, potentially hindering efforts to strengthen national cyber defenses. Now, this one, I think I speak, from the heart on this one because it's likely going to affect me and my organization, where we're in the process of going through the cybersecurity maturity model certification 2.0. And it's been a process that we started back in 2018 that may be frozen now, but it's a process that's been designed to protect vendors and the federal government from cybersecurity intrusions when dealing with federal government contracts. Then on March 1st, a lot of stuff happened in the first week of March here. March 1st, we have a deprioritization of Russian cyber threats, which we talked about earlier. The administration has shifted its focus away from Russian cyber threats, emphasizing concerns over China and Iran instead. This pivot has led to reduced monitoring of Russian cyber activities, potentially leaving the nation more vulnerable to Russian hacking efforts. Now, to put things into perspective, let's look at a few statistics on Russia's cybersecurity threats. So in 2023, Russia accounted for over 30% of unsolicited spam emails globally, making it a major source of phishing attacks. A 2024 study ranked Russia as having the highest cybercrime threat worldwide. And between July of 2023 and June of 24, approximately 2/3 of cyber attacks by Russian state and affiliated groups targeted countries in Europe and Central Asia, particularly Ukraine. And then Germany reported that 39% of companies that experienced cyber attacks in the past year attributed at least one attack to Russia, highlighting the country's role in cyber threats against businesses. So clearly, Russia has proven itself to be a clear and present danger to this country. They've shown no signs of reducing that threat. They've shown no signs of changing their tactics, being less aggressive. They're a clear and present danger. The data points here underscores Russia's prominent role in global cyber threat activities, affecting both government and private sectors. Then we have on March 4th, suspension of offensive cyber operations against Russia. In an effort to improve diplomatic relations with Russia, the administration ordered U.S. Cyber Command to halt offensive cyber operations targeting Russian entities. Critics argue the pause could embolden Russian cyber actors and diminish the U.S.'s proactive cybersecurity stance. And then on March 5th, we see a reduction in cybersecurity workforce. The Department of Government Efficiency initiated significant layoffs within federal agencies, notably affecting the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. The dismissal of over 130 CISA employees has disrupted essential cybersecurity functions and raised concerns about the government's capacity to defend against the threats. One last one I want to throw out here, and we haven't talked about it on the show yet. There was a study that came out yesterday or today talking about the security risk posed by the massive layoff efforts that the Department of Government Efficiency is executing right now, and the number of high security personnel that are being let go and not following the standard procedures. Typically, when you let someone with a top secret or a secret security clearance go, there is a debriefing that they have, an exit interview, you could say. And in that exit interview, they're informed of what they can and can't do. They're reminded of the NDAs and security precautions that they have to take. Nobody's taking any of those. And there's already been reports that foreign adversaries are attempting to recruit these U.S. government officials that have been laid off. So there's a massive, massive threat right now, security threat from these layoffs of brain drain. First of all, you don't have people that are doing their jobs to defend the country. And the people that are being let go are potentially disgruntled employees that are being approached by foreign agents to pose an even bigger threat. So it makes me stop and wonder why we're doing this. It's basically a perfect storm for increased cyber risks. The policy decisions have collectively weakened U.S. cybersecurity by reducing oversight, limiting regulatory advancements, deprioritizing key threats, and shrinking the workforce responsible for national cyber defense. The diminished focus on Russian cyber threats, in particular, stands in stark contrast to mounting evidence that Russia remains a leading actor in global cyber crime. Without proactive measures to counter these trends, the risk of large-scale cyber incidents, affecting both public and private sectors, will likely increase. Cybersecurity experts, including Bruce Schneier, warn that unless these trends are revised, the U.S. could face heightened risks in the form of data breaches, ransomware attacks, and infrastructure disruptions with fewer resources available to mitigate the threats. So what's the motivation for this? What is the administration trying to accomplish? Are they trying to accomplish? Do they understand the implications of these actions? And I honestly, I don't think they do. The recent weakening of cybersecurity defenses through executive orders, workforce reductions, and strategic shifts raises significant concerns. While official explanations may frame these changes as efforts to streamline government operations or realign national security priorities, several underlying motivations could be at play. Let's take them at face value with their diplomatic realignment with Russian relations. The suspension of offensive cyber operations against Russia and the deprioritization of Russian cyber threats suggest a broader geopolitical strategy. The administration may be pursuing a policy of diplomatic rapprochement with Moscow, seeking to reduce tensions and foster cooperation in other areas such as trade or military de-escalation. However, this approach could come at the cost of allowing Russian cyber actors more freedom to operate against U.S. interests. Is it worth the cost, is the question there. The administration sees offensive cyber operations as an obstacle to improving U.S.-Russian relations and believes that scaling them back will encourage diplomatic engagement. I don't disagree with that. However, I don't necessarily think that improved relations with Russia is in our best interest at this time. The policy shift may be interpreted as a sign of weakness, leading to increased Russian cyber aggression rather than de-escalation. And I think that's where this is going to go. We're going to get burned by this well before we reap any benefits from it. The other angle of this is the austerity approach, the government downsizing. The layoff of 130 CISA employees and the disbanding of the Cyber Safety Review Board align with broader efforts by DOGE to reduce the size and scope of federal agencies. But then you have to wonder, maybe those agencies need to exist in that capacity for some reason, and protecting us is a pretty good reason. The cuts could be driven by a belief that private sector cybersecurity firms and decentralized corporate responsibility should play a larger role in national cybersecurity defense. Coming from the business world, you would think somebody like a Donald Trump or an Elon Musk would understand the value of the federal government providing the level of intelligence and oversight in cybersecurity. Being a tech guy, you would think Musk would understand that. But clearly he's got a different motivation in mind at this point. The administration believes that cybersecurity should be more privatized. They've not been shy about that at all, shifting responsibility to corporations and state governments. But you can't have the same level of service or of protection when you go that route. And I think there's a fundamental lack of understanding of that limitation. Weakening federal cybersecurity resources may leave critical infrastructure, including utilities, transportation, and financial networks, more vulnerable to attacks. There's also the idea of deregulation and anti-bureaucratic policies. I'm sorry, I can't believe any politician when they talk about that. What they really mean is anti-opposite party bureaucracies is what they're talking about there. There's also this talk of a strategic shift towards China and Iran. Well, unfortunately, you don't get to pick the people that you defend yourself against when a lot of people are attacking you. You need to defend against all of them, and Russia is not going to stop attacking us. Yes, China's a threat, and yes, Iran and North Korea are threats. But ignoring Russian cyber activities will backfire, as cyber criminal groups and state-sponsored hackers may see this as an opportunity to escalate their attacks without fear of retaliation. What it probably really boils down to, and again, this is just my opinion, leave a note in the comments or drop a voicemail on me here and tell me I'm wrong, but it's political and it's an ideological thing. Given the history of Russian election interference and cyber influence campaigns, some critics argue the administration's stance on cybersecurity could be politically motivated. Not that I'd ever accuse a politician of being politically motivated and not putting the country's best interest at heart, but by deprioritizing Russian cyber threats, the administration may be seeking to downplay concerns about foreign influence operations that have previously benefited certain political factions. The administration may wish to avoid policies that could strain political alliances or draw attention to the past cyber-related controversies, and that's a possibility. This could erode public trust, and I can almost guarantee it will, in national security leadership and raise concerns about the politicalization of cybersecurity policy. In general, it's a risky strategy, and it has long-term consequences, and I don't think those consequences have been fully vetted by the administration. Regardless of the motivations, the cumulative effect of these policies is a weaker national cybersecurity posture at a time when cyber threats are increasing. While the administration may view these decisions as strategic, they carry significant risks, including emboldening adversaries, exposing critical infrastructure, and reducing the nation's ability to respond to emerging cyber threats. The fear that I have here, and you can claim that I'm alarmist because of it, but the fear that I have here is we're letting our guard down. We're at war with these nations from a cybersecurity standpoint, and we're literally pulling our troops off the front line here that are fighting this war for no good reason, and we're exposing ourselves. And that exposure will increase exponentially the likelihood of advanced persistent threats penetrating our military, our government, our infrastructure, so that should there be a shooting war, Donald Trump had an interview with Zelensky just the other day where he'd raised concerns about provoking World War III. Should that happen under these current circumstances, Russia could literally click a button and shut down our infrastructure, shut down our satellites, shut down our electrical grid, shut down our water system, shut down our sewer system, shut down pipelines with oil and natural gas. If we allow them this foothold in the door, they don't need to attack us. We're surrendering to them already. We're literally giving them everything that they need at this point in time by not pursuing cybersecurity measures against them. I think it's reckless. I think it's dangerous. And I think it's ultimately going to backfire in the end. Anyway, I think that's it for preaching today. Before we do go, I want to do a quick round of shout outs. We did something right. I don't know what we did, but we had a huge influx of followers on Twitch in the last few days. I don't know if we hit the right search engine at the right time, but I would love to figure out what we did so we can keep up the good work. Because of that, I can't possibly shout out to everybody here, so I'm going to shout out to the 10, the most recent 10 that followed. Here we go. Ready? Here's the rundown. Big thank you to Jackson, Jackson RESUCB. Big shout out to Fresh JHLC, KJack P3AP, Baseball GNNM, Elwood NEC, Sherman UT2Key, Sherman UT 2Q, the 1GBXTK, Clinton 94I5, and Dark Side FUSI. So thank you to everyone who followed us, and I wish I could shout out to everybody. Unfortunately, I'd be here all day because we had a lot of people follow us, but thank you to those who did. I would encourage you and all of our users to follow us. We do stream 5 days on Twitch. Technically, we stream 7 days, but I only target 5 days a week on Twitch. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you get a free Twitch Prime subscription. I'd love it if you threw that our way. It helps us keep the lights on. You can also find us, call in. Actually, I would prefer that. I'd love to get some people voicemails on the air. You can call in to 856-403-8788. That's 856-403-8788. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. Give us your opinion. What do you think of the news articles that we're talking about? What do you think of our take on them and our opinions and suggestions? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Tell me I'm wrong. We don't have to have an argument. I'm perfectly capable of having a adult discussion with people who have a different opinion of mine, and maybe you can convince me otherwise. High-res versions of our videos can be found on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings, where you can find all that and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. That's it. Another one in the books.